A tried and true phone I've been using actually for the past few months has been the Samsung Galaxy S10e, which I picked up on eBay brand new for around 350 bucks. It's basically a smaller version of the Galaxy S10, and for the price I thought it was pretty good bang for the buck, and that's why I used it for so long. Problem is, yeah, that is going to need some fixing. So I've got a digitizer right here that I ordered from eBay for I think around 100 bucks. It's brand new. It's supposed to be OEM. We're gonna try to fix this busted screen. Wish me luck.
The Vengeance A4100 is Corsair's latest take on a professional gaming and streaming machine packing a Ryzen 7 3700X and NVIDIA RTX 2080 series graphics. Enjoy among the finest Corsair components, including an RM75080 Plus Gold power supply and Vengeance DDR4 memory, along with tasteful, I'll say, RGB integration. Oh, and did I mention the included Elgato 4K 60 capture card? Wouldn't be a proper streaming PC without one. Learn more by clicking the link below.
So to get started, let's go ahead and get the digitizer out of the box. It's packaged nicely. I will link where I got this below. You might be interested in that particular seller. I'm gonna say right off the bat, this does look pretty darn good. Looks stock. Then again, I'm kind of a nub at this stuff, so I could be totally wrong here. But it does look like it will fit the S10e no problemo. Now we're gonna need a toolkit to take apart this phone. You know, newer phones are a bit finicky. You gotta really peel around the waterproof little sealants that they use around the screens and the backs. They use a lot of glass now, and so you can't pull the backs off and get to the screws that would otherwise be covered by the plastic. So yeah, you're gonna need some special tools to get that stuff out. We've got a few things that I think will come in handy. This particular kit, actually, I will link in the video description. It is not an iFixit kit, just because I was a baller on a budget at the time. I needed something cheap and fast, and yeah, looked like I got a lot for the money. I'm gonna be referencing a video from iDoc Europe for this teardown. Remember, we're replacing the entire thing, the digitizer, not just the glass on top. Now I need to remove the back glass piece first, so I'm gonna blast this with some heat, being careful not to overheat. Should just be hot enough to barely touch. Also, don't try doing something like this on wood or particle board. Probably not gonna end well. This process right here is just going to loosen the sealant bond between the glass and the frame underneath. Now we're gonna use our little suction cup. This is included in the kit. You will likely need one. Make sure that's good and adhered. And I believe the tutorial is telling us to use this very thin, flexible pry tool. All right, so you can see I got my tool in there, and now I'm gonna switch over to the plastic pry tool so that I don't scratch this central frame here. I'm just trying to pull or pry that glass back away from the frame. I'm gonna be very careful. This is glass again, and it can break, can shatter. So if you feel any decent amount of resistance from that adhesive, just work it very slowly. Yep, and see, that was my fault. I pried it and I kept pulling back and I just split it. So gonna have to order a replacement glass back panel now. That was really stupid of me, but hey, you can learn from my mistakes. So for this part here, I had to unscrew the wireless charging cover first. This kind of spans the entire back half of the phone. You can see the battery sticking out just on the bottom underneath that little circle part. I had to use my straight edge tool to kind of pry off an adhesive area. And then after a few screws were removed, yep, piece of cake. Disconnected the battery next. Want to make sure I do that. I don't want to fry anything, and like to hold the power button down a few seconds just to make sure that all the power is drained from the caps. The battery is adhered to the frame, which kind of sucks, but I was careful enough to not crease it or stab it. That would be catastrophic. Next up is the speaker area. This was held in by a few screws. It's kind of hinged in at the bottom as well. You can see this is what it looks like here. The 3.5mm headphone jack, that was removed next, and then the entire main board by a couple screws. There was a lot of adhesive left over, so I started scraping some of that off. You don't want to leave this on because it could impact the phone's ability to keep out water in the future, although I don't recommend dunking this phone under water. It is at least water resistant to an extent. I think it can actually remain submerged for a time. But now that I've already opened everything up, I know that's kind of compromised it a bit, so I want to make sure I clean this up as much as possible. And you can see once everything is cleaned, we have a fairly nice looking phone frame. I've never seen a phone frame like this before. I've never really taken apart a phone totally before, but this looks really cool. And this is the disgusting digitizer that we removed. I actually used tape to hold the glass in because it was kind of flaking onto the desk, and I don't want glass just floating everywhere, especially in my skin. So yeah, that's why I used the tape. I think that was a smart choice in hindsight. Next up, I used some of this adhesive. You can buy this online, it's linked below. This will help adhere both the front and back covers to the frame. This here is a new digitizer, and I'm connecting it now to the front of the phone. I want to make sure that this is perfectly aligned and that I'm applying a lot of force to get this to adhere properly. Again, you don't want water creeping its way inside of this little channel here that runs around the phone. This here is the vibration motor. This is for haptic feedback. I want to make sure that's reinstalled. And then next up, I installed the main board again. Make sure that you're not snagging any ribbon cables. That one that I'm grabbing there was almost snagged. And then you can see toward the top right, that is the digitizer ribbon cable. Make sure that's not snagged as well. Then we had to resecure it with 3 screws. Next up, I connected the digitizer ribbon cable as well as the cable toward the top left that you saw a bit earlier. This here is the 3.5mm headphone jack, reconnecting that. It's a little finicky trying to get that in there. I want to make sure it's situated nicely. And then that is also connected to the main board via ribbon cable. And then this here is the speaker. Once again, going to kind of hinge this into the bottom of the phone, basically redoing in reverse what we were doing to begin with in the video. And this of course is held in by a few screws as well. So once this is taken care of, the next obvious step, reinstalling the battery. I reapplied some adhesive to the base of the battery so that it stays where it should inside the phone, and then I reconnected that ribbon cable. Really hoping that this adhesive sticks. It's not the stock OEM stuff, but it didn't seem to want to move when I was reinserting it. Next up, the cover. This also includes, again, that wireless charging capability, and this actually requires several screws to kind of hold everything down. Actually, a lot of these screws thread through the main board, so main board's actually held in underneath by only 3 screws, but again, another like 7 or 8 above this where the wireless charging pad is. And you can see we're pretty much done with everything except for the glass back, which I've already ordered, coming in later. We actually forgot the SIM cards. Go ahead and do that, and there we go. Now we need to see if this phone works. All right, and now for the moment of truth. Everything is put back together except for the rear glass that I broke. Good thing is the glass on the back is not very expensive at all. I think it's like 10 or 15 bucks for a replacement glass back cover for the XSE. So I got really lucky there, but I'm gonna go ahead and power it on and see if the screen works. Let's cross our fingers. It's all looking really good so far. And I don't see any weird discolorations or anything like that. And all right, you can see it still works. That's my son there. It's my lock screen wallpaper. And I see I need to enter my PIN. The thumb scanner, the fingerprint scanner works on the side. The speaker works. I just heard that when it unlocked. We can also check the cameras. Let's check the front camera and the rear camera. So rear camera seems to be working fine. And let's check the front facing camera. All right, that is also looking good. And one last thing, I wanted to check that the motor for the haptic feedback was working, because that was something else we had to manually disconnect. That is good to go, just typing on the keyboard there. And I'm assuming that the headphone jack's gonna work. That was a pretty simple one to remove and reinstall as well. So, seems like we fixed it. Now there are a few tiny issues still with the phone, just cosmetic issues though, which I guess that's better than having hardware related issues. The bezels around the sides of the screen, kind of where the screen connects to the frame, those bezels were a bit chewed up, and this just comes from me being kind of a nub. I mean, look, I broke the glass back just because the adhesive kind of extended a bit further in than I thought on one side. But apart from those, I mean, minor cosmetic issues, I'd say this is a pretty decent job. I'm impressed with myself. I'm glad I was able to follow the steps that were in the video that I referenced. I'll have that linked below if you're interested. I'm sure he has many other videos on many other phones that you could reference as well. And the tools that I used, including the kit that I got here that was pretty cheap. It's not an iFixit kit, but it still worked nicely. I'll be sure to link this down below if you're interested. Comes with plenty of heads. I don't want to flip it upside down, it'll fall out. But this is actually a pretty nice little tool set here, and helped me take the entire phone apart. You also need a heat gun, more than likely, at least for some of the newer phones. and a replacement digitizer or glass cover. I recommend the full screen assembly if possible. It would just save you some headache, and then either a replacement glass back or whatever else you're trying to replace. Even a battery replacement you could technically do, wouldn't be very difficult in a 10e or an S10e. So thank you guys for watching, for bearing with me. I know this has been a little cringy at times. I definitely don't claim to be a pro or even not even really an amateur. I'm kind of still a rookie when it comes to phone disassembly and repair. I'm not used to working with much smaller electronics, and phones are pretty finicky. They're not like PCs where you just take off full panels and you can easily throw things in and out, swap parts. Phones are a little more meticulous, and you have to have very fine tools and very careful hands when it comes to taking apart, especially modern phones. So fun to experience that and to kind of document the process for all of you. If you guys like the video, leave a comment down below and click that thumbs up button, and consider subscribing for more content like this. My name is Greg. Thanks for fixing a phone with me. Well, almost. Just need to put the glass cover back on. But yeah, everything else is good.